We are going to read another selection about the weather today. And before we get started, I wanted to build a little bit of background. Weather around the United States has different patterns, and some areas of the United States have distinct seasons, like summer, fall, winter, and spring, and other areas do not. Each area of the country is likely to have different kinds of weather and different kinds of storms. Scientists who study weather patterns are called meteorologists. Can you say meteorologist? Now, I know that you have heard a weather forecast, whether it was on the radio or TV, and those people who try to predict the weather are called meteorologists. The story that we're going to read, or the selection we're going to read, Weather Measures, is another explanatory text. And remember that explanatory text explains something and it gives information to tell how or why something happens. And it also uses facts in that explanation. As we read weather measures, I want you to think, why is it important that we study the weather? As we go through weather measures, we are going to be using the comprehension strategy, clarifying and asking and answering questions. Those are good strategies to use with an explanatory text. So let's go ahead and read Weather Measures by Yvonne Morrison. It is important to know what the weather will be like. If it is going to be sunny, you need a hat. If it is going to be cold, you need a sweater. We can find out what the weather will be by looking at a weather forecast. Weather forecasters use tools to measure the weather. They use the information to predict the weather. Now, what does the author mean by weather forecaster? Let me go back up and reread this section to see if I can figure out what it means. We can find out what the weather will be by looking at a weather forecast. Weather forecasters use tools to measure the weather. They use this information to predict the weather. Now I understand. A weather forecaster is someone who tries to explain or predict what the weather will be. In the past, people did not know how to measure the weather. They looked for signs of rain and wind. They looked for signs of cold weather. They saw that the rain was making puddles. They looked at the wind blowing in the trees. Well, now I have a question. Why did people not know how to measure the weather in the past? I don't know if I'll find the answer as I read in this text, but I am going to try to look for it. Why did people not know how to measure weather in the past? Later, people used tools to measure the weather. Then they could see how much rain or snow there had been. They could see how strong the wind was. Well, here's an answer to my question. It says later people used tools to measure the weather. So people must need the tools to help them measure the weather. And people in the past didn't have those tools. Wind is air that moves from one place to another. A light wind is called a breeze. Strong winds are called gales. Very strong winds can pull up trees. They can blow roofs from houses. It's important to know how strong the wind is going to be. People use tools to measure the wind, to show them where the wind is coming from. People use a weather vane, and that's what this is on the picture. You can see that's a weather vane, and it helps you to know if the wind's coming from the north or the west or the south or the east. Now, I know that asking questions as I read helps me think about the text. After reading these 2 pages, I have more questions. I wonder if there are other tools to measure weather. For instance, is there a tool that measures how fast the wind is? Perhaps I will learn about other tools as I keep reading. Water is an important part of weather. It makes up rain and snow. It makes up clouds. Clouds are made of tiny drops of water or pieces of ice. Clouds can help forecasters predict what the weather will be. Like a few fluffy clouds usually mean good weather. Heavy, dark clouds can bring rain. There are different kinds of rain. Light rain is sometimes called a drizzle. Heavy rain is called a downpour. When it rains, marks on a rain gauge show how much has fallen. Snow forms when tiny pieces of ice in a cloud stick together. They fall as a snowflake. People measure snowfall using a stick in the ground. The stick has marks on it. This shows how deep the snow is. I'm going to stop here and see if my questions have been answered. I didn't read anything about a tool that measures how strong the wind is. However, I did learn about some other tools that measure weather. I read that a rain gauge tells how much rain has fallen, and a marked stick can measure how deep the snow is. It is important to know how hot or cold the day is going to be. But temperature is how warm or cold the air is. People can measure the temperature. They use a tool called the thermometer. The number at the top of the red liquid tells the temperature. And can you see the thermometer right here, that red liquid in there, the mercury? Now, as I read, I continue to look for answers to my questions. Here's another tool that measures weather. A thermometer tells how warm or cool the air is, but it doesn't tell us anything about wind speed. The sun warms the air, land, and water. Without the sun, it would be too cold for us to live on Earth. When the sun looks low in the sky, the temperature can feel cool. When the sun looks high in the sky, it can feel warm. Weather forecasters predict what the weather will be like. Then we can be ready for the day. They also give people warnings about bad weather. These warnings help keep people safe. Some bad storms occur more often in certain areas. Sometimes storms can be very strong and turn into tornadoes, hurricanes, and blizzards. Oh, good readers, stop to clarify and figure out the meaning of unknown words. What does the word blizzard mean? I'm going to see if I can figure out by using what I have read and using the photographs. Blizzard. Aha, blizzard is the last word in that sentence, and it's the last picture on the page. So I'm going to guess that a blizzard means a really strong snowstorm. It also mentions tornadoes, so I can look up here at that picture, and hurricanes. So these pictures really help me understand what these bad storms might be like. During storms, do not go outside. It is important to stay safe in dangerous weather. All right, that's the end of our selection. All right, I wanted to get back to that first page because those first two pages are just loaded with vocabulary words, aren't they? So the first one is weather. Weather. Now, the weather means the condition of the air around us.
Weather, the condition of the air around us. Here, the weather is nice. The sun is out. There, the weather is bad. Weather.
And I'm sure you guys already know lots about weather. How about this word, the word tools? Tool is something that is specially made to help people do some kind of work.
Tools, plural form of tool. An object specially made to help people do work. She uses tools to fix the broken door.
And the kind of tools we're talking about in this selection are the kind of tools that help measure the weather, which brings us to our next vocabulary word. Here's the word measure.
Measure. To find or show the amount or condition of something. We measure the wood. We see how long it is.
So measure is a way that we find out the amount or condition of something when we measure it. Another word that we need to look at here is information. And this is an informational or explanatory text. It gives lots of information, which is knowledge or facts about something.
Information. Knowledge or facts about something. I learned information about my mom.
So information is knowledge or facts about something. And weather forecasters look for information to help them predict the weather. And predict is our last vocabulary word that we're going to take a look at.
Predict. To tell beforehand. Joe will predict the end of the book. He will guess the end. Predict.
Predict. Good job. All right. So there's no assignment with today's story, but I would like for you to try and turn on the news and listen to a weather forecast and listen for the kind of information that meteorologists give you during a weather forecast.